Howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile. And I've been having a bit of a look through the synthesis crafting options. There's a website that's been put up, which I'll put a link to in the description of the video below, that lists all of the roughly 2,200 possible synthesis item implicits that you can get. So this is the extra bonus that an item that's spit out by the synthesizer has over and above the normal mods that an item would have. Implicits that are a bonus, such as, for instance, fingerless silk gloves are an item type that you can get in some of the Atlas of Worlds content. They're energy shield gloves, slightly lower base energy shield than sorcerer gloves, but they have a bonus that increases spell damage that stacks with pretty much everything. So one of the implicits that caught my eye was the ability to basically build your own Hand of Wisdom in action. You'll notice here that I've highlighted two rows actually, but one of them which illustrates that you can get as an implicit on a dagger, adds a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 5 to 6 lightning damage to attacks with this weapon per 10 intelligence. I want to go through a crafting process that I've used that allows you to get a very high chance of crafting such a weapon. It's not guaranteed, and it's not the cheapest craft I've ever done, but it looks like it's going to cost me, for the attempt, which I believe to have a 50-50 chance of hitting, it will cost me somewhere of the order 250 to 270 Chaos Orbs. So it's a pretty reasonable shot, I believe, and doesn't feel like it's something that's out of reach of players that have gotten into endgame. However, it has, just making the one attempt has cleaned me out a bit because I haven't been focusing hard on currency. Now, I've picked up 3 daggers here, and if you have a look at them, you'll notice something. Firstly, they're all 2 mod rares. Secondly, all of them have, as their explicit mod, some form of adding fire damage, and that is locked on all of them. So here we've got this one, prefix is Scorching, adds 32 to 53 fire damage. All of them have some version of that mod. The second mod that they all have is a suffix, and it is tier 1 intelligence. Importantly, those 3 tiers add up to 162. Remember that number, it'll be important soon. So let's just jump back to the Path of Exile database. This is information that's been data mined from the game files. Now, there's 4 different columns that are here. I have filtered this to only show lines that include the word intelligence and include the word dagger. So, the first item is the explicit mod. Here we're talking about the all of them have of the genius with 53, 54, or 55 to intelligence. The second line is the maximum that you can get, the maximum of that mod that you can have when you add up all 3 items combined in order to get this row. If you exceed 200, which is not possible, then you would instead get something from elsewhere on the table. Third up is what items you can roll this on, so claws, scepters, daggers, and wands. In this case, I'm looking at daggers. And then fourth up is the result you get. So let's just have a look. If the intelligence we'd had been on those items had been in the range 131 to 160, we would fall into this row. We would have a maximum of 160 combined intelligence. We'd be looking at a dagger. We would get an implicit modifier of 18 to 20 intelligence. Now, if you have a quick look at the implicit modifiers on the daggers, you'll see here crit chance, crit chance, crit chance. Crit chance is a pretty good implicit, and in general, you're going to prefer 30 or 50% crit chance to having just a small amount of intelligence, like 18 or 20. So we're not interested in rolling this implicit. What we want is this one. If I can actually get that highlight to work, what we want is this one. So we need to have strictly more than 160 intelligence and less than or equal to 200. As I mentioned, currently in the game, it's not possible to exceed 165 intelligence on weapons. I do not believe that the mastercrafts that add intelligence and quality are able to stack with this mod. However, I'm not sure, and that's something I'm keeping aside for later, so let's come back to that one when we... Oh, sorry, just returning to the game client there. So I've just putting the 3 daggers where I want them. This is one that I'll save for later because I want to show how I crafted these items in the first place. Or at least I'll have a 50-50 shot at crafting one because I don't have enough orbs of annulment to definitely get one. So once more, 53 plus 54 plus 55 is 162. We have enough. What happens when you stick a mod... stick 3 rare items into the synthesizer is that the game takes takes for each mod that one of them has. So this one has, firstly, there's that fire damage mod, Scorching, or sorry, this one's a cremating one, and then the Genius. It basically makes a combined item that has all of the mods, but the mods that are the same stack up. So that means that would have lots of fire damage, 57 to 94 plus 32 to 53 plus 26 to 55. Just what you'd get if you added all of those together. It then does the same with intelligence, 162 in. And then it does a lookup against the table that that's available on PoEDB. And it picks one of these mods at random from the combined item. So it'll be one of fire damage or intelligence will be picked. I want it to pick intelligence. I don't know of any way to influence it in order to make it pick intelligence as yet. This may exist, we may learn more about this system later, but for the moment I'm not aware of anything. Lastly, I'll add that these items have to be rare to use the synthesizer. So without much further ado, let's see whether I'm going... Oh, that's not what we want. We want the synthesizers over here. We're going to stick these 3 in. You have a bit of a drum roll. And we will see whether it randomly picks fire damage or whether it picks intelligence. I believe it to be 50-50 between the two, and it will then create an item with 1 implicit. The reason I only get 1 implicit, you can get more than 1, but the reason I'm only going to get 1 is because these items all have 1 fractured mod only. If they'd had 2 mods, then the resulting item is believed to generally have 2, and if they'd all been 3 mods, then the resulting item is believed to be 3. If you mix and match, we don't actually know as a community yet what you're going to get. But let's actually hit this button and see whether this gamble has paid off or not. And we just got something completely different because it would appear, and I'm quite happy with that 1% spell damage per 16 intelligence. I wasn't actually aware that that was a possibility. Now that's interesting. That means that I have misread the table over at PoEDB. And I'm sure that this is something I'm now going to have to quickly do some research and find out what exactly happened there. So it looks here that there is the option of either getting 1% increased spell damage per 16 int, or the attacks dealing 1 to basically 1 to 5.5 lightning damage to attacks per 10 intelligence. I'm actually not sure if there is something that that makes it biased towards one or the other. However, I'm certainly not unhappy with this. This is a build enabling item potentially. I'm just curious to see whether any of these are currently for sale on the various trade aggregation websites. So what I'll do is I'll bring that up and I'll have a quick look. I've got so I'm going to search for the number 16. Increased spell damage per 16 intelligence. And I'm going to have a look and see if this is something that exists. It doesn't seem to exist unless there's a specific way that's saying explicit. Doesn't actually appear that you can search for this at the moment. on this site. I'm going to check the alternate site, which is poe.trade. So I was on the Grinding Gear Games provided site there. Let's have a quick look on poe.trade whether it's got the ability to search for spell damage per 16 intelligence, and it appears it does. So let's see. I've had some problems with this not working in the past, and that appears to be bringing up all of the various Elder items that have that. That's all very interesting, but what I'm looking for is going to be ones that have that as a non-Elder mod. So let's also insist that these items not be Elder items and have a look and see if there's anything that's been crafted. And there doesn't seem to be anything available on the server at the moment. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, just that no one's really talking about it. In any case, this will have the highest item level of anything that was fed into it. And its current mods are, it's got some quite high tier mods, but utter garbage because this is not the item that we wanted. So that's Victory Skewer, the Golden Chris, something that was a little bit of interesting to craft. I'm going to give some further thought as to what can be done with that, because I was originally hoping to get the Hand of Wisdom and Action style mod. It may be that some of the various base types, so Golden Chris, maybe one type of dagger, and then other daggers may be considered combat daggers. I'm not sure. This is the sort of thing that needs to be figured out. So I had all of those weapons that had... I had the 3 weapons to begin with that had added fire damage, and that had intelligence, and that had nothing else. The way that I got those was I did a search for synthesized items that were daggers and that had an item level of 82 or higher. So you'll notice here that the item level on this dagger is a solid 83. They had to have exactly one prefix that was locked in the synthesis. That was a fractured prefix. And then my process was as follows: scour it. That removes all of the other mods from the item. You'll notice that scouring orbs normally make an item normal. In this case, they made it rare. They made it magic because it has one locked mod. If I had scoured this and it had had 2 or 3 fractured mods instead of 1, it would have remained rare. The reason I haven't done that is because it's much more expensive to craft using Chaos Orbs than it is to use alterations. And trust me, I've used a lot of alterations. I used something like 550 making this. That's why my currency tab is so empty at the moment. Now at this point, when you use an alteration on these, the game will generate a random item level 83 dagger, but the thing that will happen is you'll often just get a Scorching Ambusher. What that means is that it's generated a random prefix, but you don't even see that prefix because it's replaced by adds 32 to 61 fire damage. Okay, so alteration, increased attack speed. Yuck, 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 yuck. Nope, nope. And that's a good mod, but it's not useful for my purposes. I'm going to try and get intelligence or dexterity at tier 1. See, there we had a couple in a row that just had the Scorching Ambusher. I may not actually succeed in hitting this at all, because I am very low on currency. That's 30 to dexterity, but we need at least 51. $38 intelligence, again, we need at least 51, which is the top tier. That can only roll on item level 82 items or above. And we'll just keep burning through all of these alteration orbs. I'm going to run out of them, but that's fine. I can explain without an example, assuming that, unless I get lucky and hit it. Some of these may actually lead to promising items as well. I'm just not sure. Okay, that leaves me without any more alteration orbs, so I can't continue any further. However, let's just assume that I'd hit 53 to intelligence with that roll. My next step would be to regal the item, and so just for argument's sake, let's assume that I hit 27 dexterity. So I would now have adds fire damage, 27 dex, 53 in. I would want it then to become a 2 mod rare. That would be an annulment orb, and it would be a 50-50 shot to see whether you hit it or not. In any case, that's all that is. That's all there is for the moment about crafting these items. These are the intermediate stages. I'm just going to stick this. That's certainly not going to sell at an Exalt, but I'll just stick it there because I may want to play around with it later. That was the crafting process for this Victory Skewer dagger here, which now needs to be crafted further. I believe that this will go with an... If I do decide to go ahead with my planned next character, which is a Vaal Fireball character, I may consider going intelligence stacking, and then if I do that, intelligence stacking Vaal Fireball, I would be crafting this with a Scorched Fossil and an Etheric Fossil. Etheric for the increased chance of getting caster mods, a Scorched Fossil to get more chance of getting the higher tier fire mods, or if I wanted to go expensive, I could go a Scorched Fossil, an Etheric Fossil, a Bloodstained Fossil, which is for Vaal Fireball. Those are incredible, and possibly a Fractured Fossil so that I get 2 copies of the weapon to use. Fractured fossils are one of the rarest fossils. Oh, well, both Fractured and Bloodstained are extremely rare fossils, and when you use a Fractured Fossil, you also get a copy of the item, just like you'd used a Mirror of Kalandra on the result. It's certainly not as powerful as a Mirror of Kalandra because you don't have the level of control over what you're mirroring. In any case, that was interesting. That worked differently to how I was expecting, but and it does say that there's still a lot for us as a player base to discover about this crafting system, but the result was positive, if not what I wanted. I got something that is potentially an interesting dagger. I can see that that's, you know, an implicit mod of 75% increased spell damage on a build that is already stacking intelligence would be a very, very solid roll. It's just a question of can everything else be made to work. In any case, in the interim, I'm going to scour this off and then just put this in. I'm going to put this at a high price for the moment because it might just be exactly what someone wants, and if it is exactly what someone wants, then they're going to be willing to pay for it. I am also now going to have a quick check as to whether the trade websites are picking that up, because that is a very unusual. There's a very unusual mod that it has. I believe that that's only going to show up as an explicit, so we're going to say we're not an Elder item, and we're going to do a search for that, and we're not finding it. Again, let's try POE.trade. If the aggregation websites are not finding it, then that will be quite an interesting. That'll be an interesting result, because we're then going to need to figure out how to find these items. So again, I'll do a search, and we're getting the Elder versions. But let's see if we can get any that are non-Elder. So neither trade aggregation website is finding these at the moment. That's intriguing, and I think again that's just going to be something that's going to make these items hard to come across the ones that you want. But in any case, that's all I've got on synthesis crafting. Certainly there's a lot to discover about this system still. And there's a lot of potential to make really, really good stuff, even if it's not exactly what I was expecting to make during this video.